So to begin with, I actually want all of you to imagine a tattoo studio. What do you see? Probably a lot of people dressed in black, a bunch of bros tattooing other bros, loud music, walls covered in imagery of Hindu gods and daggers, dragons, trishuls. Something like that, correct? Now hold that image, because here's what I want to tell you today. Tattooing didn't always look like this, especially in India. For generations, actually, tattooing was a practice that was shared most commonly between women. It used to occur in open, lush green fields, under trees, inside homes, never confined to the four walls or a pin code. About 7 years ago, I had returned home to Mumbai after working in advertising for a few years in the States. And while I was there, I got a couple of really fun, cute tattoos from some amazing artists. And now that I was back, I was ready for my next tattoo. And in this search for an artist or a studio whose work and energy I resonated with, I was actually left quite disappointed. And why? Well, to begin with, most of these studios were just packed with men. And even if there was a woman, she was usually a receptionist. Now, I'm not saying that there are no female tattoo artists, but even today, we are the exception and not the norm. It wasn't just the presence of men that threw me off, but the overall energy of the studio that felt too harsh. And now in male-dominated spaces, harshness doesn't always look like aggression. It is subtle, it is systemic, and it is even internalized. And in these hyper-masculine tattoo studios, a woman's needs are often ignored. And inappropriate behavior, such as flirting with the clients or asking them to remove more clothes than actually required, is very casually brushed off. But what stood out and stayed with me the most was how femininity was routinely dismissed, especially when it came to something as basic as tattoo designs. Studios weren't curious about what women wanted. They were preoccupied with scale and spectacle, arm sleeves filled with mountains and Hindu gods and thick black bands. When I would ask them to show me something simple, minimal, cute, I was shown the same predictable cliches, right? It was the angel wings, the butterflies, the infinity signs, and then, of course, the mandalas. When I would take my own designs to them, they were always redrawn to be something bigger, heavier. And they kept justifying this as artistic freedom. It was apparent that to them, bold is better. And that's when a small thought took root in me. What if I could teach myself how to tattoo? And what if I drew designs that women like me would want to get? So in 2020, I started Borderline Tattoos. It's a practice that challenges what tattooing can look and feel like when women lead the way. The experience starts even before you arrive. We talk, I listen, and you have the final say. Because a tattoo doesn't just sit on your skin. It actually becomes a way of how you carry yourself for the rest of your lives. This is why my clients, whom I call collaborators, we even take a lot of time to figure out the right placement for the design. And this entire process, a lot of clients have said they found it to be very calm, warm, and welcoming. It never felt rushed, it never felt judged. And through the years of this work, and also having crossed paths with some incredible people, I slowly started to uncover what lay buried in India's tattooing history. In many indigenous communities, like the Begas, the Santals, the Rabaris, it's always the older women that carried the tattooing knowledge. Tattoos weren't just ornamentation. They were actually used as identity to carry through life and through death. They marked very important transitions of one's life, such as puberty and childbirth. And it was always this, the knowledge of this practice was passed down always from mother to daughter, generation after generation. In some tribes actually, such as the Ao Nagas and the Begas, men aren't even allowed to witness this ritual. In fact, some villages ask the men to leave so that this beautiful practice can be shared between two women in privacy and as an act of inheritance. Now, it is important to mention that all these tattoos were not done out of choice. Some of them were forced, and consent was not a part of the process. And it is very important to hold this complexity when we talk about India's tattooing history. Sadly, then came colonization. The British outlawed many indigenous tattooing practices. Tattooing was called as savage, unsanitary, a stain on India's civilizing process. What was actually once sacred had become superstition. And generations of knowledge that had been passed down disappeared because of shame and punishment that was sometimes as severe as death. Because of this, tattooing moved indoors into studios. And these studios, well, we've already pictured them, they weren't welcoming to all. They mirrored the priorities of those that felt the most at home in them. And this often meant men. When I started Borderline Tattoos, my work was very simple, playful, fun. Nothing too big, no macho symbolism. And then surprisingly, people started coming to me for this work. And most of these people turned out to be women. And that there in itself felt like a revolution to me. Over time, I started growing more curious about Indian culture and art, especially my nani's embroidery designs. I started weaving them into my tattoos. But what's been the most surprising has been that a lot of men have come in asking for the same things, which is small, delicate designs. Proof that bold isn't always better. And while my style and designs have evolved over the time, my intention has always remained the same. That has been to celebrate womanhood. Now the thing is, it's not always been about tattoos. It's also about this space. And while I've spent so much time talking about what happens inside the four walls of a studio, I want to question the walls as well. Who were they built for? Who disappeared from them? Who gets to hold the needle? Yes, we are seeing more and more studios across India today trying to be more inclusive, more soft, gentler, more welcoming, and safer. And to be honest, that's great. But at some point, the idea of a tattoo studio can start to feel gated, more polished. It feels more curated and branded to appeal only to a certain kind of an audience. Across India, there are millions of tattoo artists who sit on the streets and work. They are located outside temples, at fairs. They sit on the footpaths. They're extremely skilled. They are self-taught, community-taught. For them, their studios are the open streets. And their work actually is much more accessible, more embedded in community, and truly reflective of tattooing's actual nature. But still, we call their work informal and unsafe. And then artists like me, who have a social media presence and a clean setup, are called creative and innovators. So what makes one artist authentic while the other invisible? It's actually these hierarchies of space, caste, class, language. They decide whose labor is considered art and whose is ignored, and whose studios are celebrated and whose are actually looked down upon. So therefore, when we talk about inclusion, it can't be just about adding a woman to a space. It's actually rethinking the entire tattoo studio, right? Who are they built for? whose stories get to be heard and seen. It is about seeking artists beyond the mainstream and sharing their work not as a favor, but actually as a way of cultural restoration. Inclusion doesn't mean just bringing in the right people or enough people, but it actually means rethinking what a tattoo studio can actually be. So once again, I now ask you to imagine a tattoo studio, one where women aren't an afterthought, but the foundation. It can be a lush open field, it can be a room, it can be the back of a truck, or even the building terrace. What do you see? And I think most importantly, who do you actually see walk in and who gets to hold the needle? Thank you.